I'm building a dream shop next to my house, but the foundation might be straight out of a nightmare. Did we go overboard on the design? Was 50 yards of concrete a little aggressive? Is this really a bunker, and does that make me a doomsday prepper? Time will tell, but this shop sure as isn't going anywhere.
Most insane thing I've ever done on a residential job.
This video is sponsored by Shopify. Let's go back and see how we got here. Welcome back to the mud pit that is my backyard. Today is a really exciting day because we are officially starting the excavation for the foundation of the shop. Now, like I mentioned in my previous video, I am hiring professionals to do a lot of this big work. As much as I want to drive that thing, they're going to be a lot better, a lot faster, a lot safer, and probably not screw anything up. So the first thing they're doing is laying out the location of the shop to figure out kind of where they need to excavate, to get everything down to grade so we can start digging for the footers. Now we've got a lot of dirt to get rid of, so I'm going to get out of the way so they can get to work. And just like that, in one day, they dug out this entire corner. Now, he estimates there's about 300 yards of dirt that they pulled out of here, which is now piled up in a mountain sitting in the center of our backyard. So over the next couple days, they're gonna get trucks and get that out of here. And I know sometimes scale doesn't really come across very well on camera, but this wall here is about 5.5 feet tall. And this is all gonna be behind that retained wall of the foundation, including that back corner. So this whole back corner of the shop is actually gonna be sunk down into the earth. And because of that, we've got to pour some enormous footers that were engineered, in my opinion, I think a little over-engineered, to hold back the weight of that dirt and water that collects behind it. So where I'm standing right now is roughly about what the finished grade is gonna be of the shop. So we've got to dig below that, pour these enormous footers, pour the giant walls that's gonna be on this side and that side to make up this back corner. And then once all that's done, the forms are removed, then we pour the internal slab for the shop. All right, I'll show you something. So we've got the house for scale, we've got the pile of dirt, and as I make my way up this literal mountain, I'm now pretty much even basically where the roof line starts, which is 10 feet off the ground from down there. And the drop off is even larger when you come to this side of the pile, and from this angle, it looks a lot bigger. So obviously, like I said, the next step is to get this out of here. They're gonna back trucks in, load it up, send them out, and that's gonna take probably a couple days. Hopefully, we don't get any rain. Hopefully. The first step actually is to build a road around the side of our house and through the backyard. Since our paper driveway would be torn up by anything heavy, this is gonna serve as an access point for equipment, the dump trucks, and eventually even the cement trucks. This is one of those things I always appreciate about watching pros work their craft. They're always thinking about future steps and being mindful of the order of operations. In my experience, this is the hardest and most tedious part of any DIY project that I've ever tried before. I usually spend far too much time pre-building in my head, thinking about how things are gonna work and go together before actually doing anything. Now, I could also just be a head case, I don't know, but you get the idea. As day one came to a close and many loads were trucked out, I was blown away by how much dirt was still left. I was also thinking to myself, I'm gonna feel really stupid if we ever have to order fill dirt during any point of the course of this project. I hope that's not foreshadowing. Damn it, why'd I say that? All right, while they're over there finishing the dirt work, let's talk about Shopify. Now, whether you currently have or you're ever planning on starting an online business, Shopify is in my opinion, the only way to go. Sure, you can start with some of these other platforms, but if you ever get any level of serious, you're gonna just transition to Shopify anyways. Shopify is the tool that I built my online store with a year ago, and I could not be happier. One of the big reasons for building this garage is it's gonna be kind of an R&D center for developing new products for that business. One of my absolute favorite things about Shopify is how it can really scale with you. You can start off with a really simple site, or you can grow it all the way to enterprise level and sell to the entire world. I recently started using their managed markets feature, which lets you sell internationally super easy. In fact, last year we sold to over 45 countries around the world, and I didn't have to do anything in terms of managing international VAT taxes and duties and all that complicated stuff. Shopify Managed Markets does all of that for you. That's just one of the features that makes Shopify easy to use. There's also a whole host of apps developed by third parties that work natively with Shopify to really expand what your storefront can do. So if you want to build that online business you've always thought about, or transition an existing business to Shopify, scan the QR code or head to shopify.com/shopnation. Trust me when I say, from personal experience, it's the only way to go. Oh, I think they're done now. And just like that, after 3 days of digging and trucking out all the dirt, we got this whole area cleared out. And as you can tell from the before and after, it's a big difference. The next thing we did was have a surveying company come out and stake out the exact location of the foundation, because our concrete guy wants to make extra sure that we're in the right spot, just given how close we are to the back boundary line of our property. So all these stakes are about 5 feet off of where the actual footer is, so they can always reference off of something. But as I'm looking around the yard, I just can't help but think it kind of looks like a dirt bike track. That's way too much fun. And no, I don't own a tiny pink and purple motorcycle. That was actually my wife's motorcycle when she was like 3 years old. So this thing's over 30 years old, still runs great. I just thought I'd make a funny clip. Anyways, the next step is to dig and pour the footers. After carefully laying everything out based on the surveyor's reference stakes, or are they batter boards? I don't know. They could dig the footers per the foundation drawing. Followed by adding the rebar, hundreds and hundreds, I mean, probably thousands of pounds of it. As you can see, they've got everything dug out. They got the rebar laid in place. Everything is pretty damn stout. Like I said, I had a sneaking suspicion that this foundation was completely overdrawn. Now, I'm not a civil engineer. I have no background in drawing foundations or understand the intricacies of kind of what's required. But as I say, fool me once on this little shed with the crappiest foundation, fool me twice on the most overbuilt foundation. This concrete company that's doing the work, it's called Wackler Concrete. They're amazing. If you're in the Dayton or surrounding areas, definitely look them up. But they do a lot of concrete jobs, including industrial jobs. And I asked them, I said, hey, so what do you think of this foundation?
Most insane thing I've ever done on a residential job.
Have you ever seen anything this big?
And a commercial job. Yeah. We've done bigger in commercial. We've done 13 foot wide, 18 inch deep.
But not for a little garage?
What's that?
Not
for a garage like this. Never. I mean, look at it.
I have a question.
I laugh every time I look.
I know where I'm going if there's a tornado.
Why don't I just buy Regis?
Actually, we'd still, the building would be gone. The concrete walls would be here. Promise you that.
I think my hunch was correct. It's obviously overbuilt, but I can rest assured knowing that it's not going to go anywhere in the event of a tornado, a meteor, a cataclysm, the sun exploding. Listen, I can armchair quarterback all day like the best of them, but we're here, and if I had to choose between underdrawn or overdrawn, I'm picking the over every time. After sealing up the ends of each wall footer section, they got to work pouring the rest. And boy, can I just say, that road came in handy. These fully loaded cement trucks, which can weigh over 60,000 pounds, had no trouble getting back here. These retained wall footers back here took a full 10 yards of concrete. And remember, none of this is actually going to be visible once this wall is backfilled and the slab is poured later. You'll notice what looks like a 2x4 laying down the center of all the walls. This is actually a form for the keyway that was called out around the entire perimeter. I think a bit more of that belt suspenders action going on here. Once the back areas were fully poured, they quickly dug out the front footer, adding some piping sleeves for the plumbing runs later, and laid the rebar and keyway form boards before getting back to pouring. A couple of days later, they were back for step 2, which is setting up the forms for the poured walls around the entire perimeter. These are going to lock in nicely to those keyways formed in the footers. And for this, we needed a pump truck to reach all the way around, and man, are they cool. The absolute last preparation step was to spray down the forms with oil to make cleanup later much easier. Another veteran move by an experienced crew. They told us this makes the cleanup process so much faster. Then, all that was left was to pour, starting with the tall wall section in the back. Once everything is nice and set up, they've got to get all the forms off, which was made a lot easier, I think, due to all of that oil they sprayed on beforehand. And what we're left with is really, the only way to describe it would be a bomb shelter. This thing is ridiculous. 8-inch poured walls around the entire perimeter. This back corner, obviously, is the retained part of the foundation, which is going to hold back the dirt. Those are right around 6 feet tall from the footer and are just so freaking beefy. So I think that brings the tally of the concrete poured to 20 yards for the footers, another 20 yards for the walls, and then of course we still have to pour the slab itself. So, and if you made it this far in the video, I hope you're subscribed because you're obviously invested and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. But there's a couple of things they have to do before pouring the actual slab itself. You can see they over excavated when they poured the walls, so they've got to backfill the inside with gravel. But before they do that, they slid in a piece of 2-inch rigid insulation because technically this area of the slab is going to be above the frost lines. They don't want that internal gravel or slab to kind of heave up and crack. Seems like a good idea. But before they add all of the gravel in the center, they've still got to do all the plumbing. So they're going to trench out and run all the lines for all the different drains and water sources. Thankfully, they thought ahead and put in 2 sleeves underneath the giant footers down there so they don't have to dig underneath. Now, if you look around the perimeter, they've got a chalk line establishing what I'm guessing is the final grade of the actual slab. And as you probably know, because this is classified as a garage, I've got to have some slope back to front to allow for proper drainage. And I've asked for the absolute minimum slope possible, so I'm not trying to set up tools on a hill. But what we've come up with is the back portion of the shop and the bathroom are going to be level, and then the transition point is going to be from there to the front of the shop, which is going to have that gentle grade. So it's not something that's a huge deal, but it is something that we wanted to make sure we thought of ahead of time, considering we're going to be using this purely as a shop. Now, one decision I made pretty early on was not to put a giant 2-car garage door on the front of the shop, though given how big it is, that would make a lot of sense. Instead, I went with an extra wide single garage door because, as we all know, in a workshop, wall space is everything. And I didn't want to give up so much wall space for a garage door that I frankly wouldn't use as a garage door. But I have to kind of think about resale value down the road. So I picked out a 10-foot wide by 8-foot tall door, which is plenty big to get pretty much anything in and out of the shop. It's just not gonna be really well suited to get multiple cars in and out of here at once. And I know you're thinking that we've gotta be close to the finish line of the world's most over-engineered shop foundation. We've still gotta do plumbing, we've gotta put in gravel, we've gotta get it inspected, then we've gotta pour the slab. But then there's more. These ain't just called retaining walls for nothing. They've still gotta put in the drains down here, they gotta backfill with gravel, and then obviously backfill with earth up to that, which is still a ton of work. And then we'll be ready to move on to building. Before we get this final slab poured, I decided to add some conduit to run an Ethernet line from our house. It's a detail that wasn't in the original plan, but I figured it was much easier to do now rather than later, considering we're not sharing any power between the main house and this new shop. We're actually going to pull a whole separate service just for the shop. I was able to fit this little 3/4 inch PVC conduit through one of the sleeves and run it along the perimeter to this front corner, which is where the stairs and a small closet will be. See, look at me, thinking ahead. With that, we're ready to get this puppy finished. Well, this is awkward. Here we are a couple days later and it basically looks the same. Well, mostly the same anyways. They did get the waterproofing on the back side of the wall, which I forgot to mention, but it's a really important step. And they also got all the plumbing runs set and ready to go. But our original timeline got kind of pushed back a little bit because we already were supposed to have everything filled in, gravel set, mesh laid, everything ready to pour. And we're actually supposed to do that pour today because tomorrow I actually leave to go on a trip. So unfortunately, that means we're gonna wrap the video up here. In the next video, we're gonna get everything poured and more importantly, we're gonna get to framing, which for me is my favorite part. So if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed and I will see you guys on the next one.